It was a hot August night back in 1981, and I was just chilling in my bedroom, lost in a book. But then, something caught my eye, a movement behind the air conditioning vent right above my bed. My heart skipped a beat as I stared back, realizing there were eyes peering at me through the metal grates.
At the time, I was 22 and had just moved into my very first apartment. I was so excited to start this new chapter in my life. The apartment was cozy, and I was in the process of moving in and getting settled. Little did I know, an unexpected and terrifying experience was about to unfold. One afternoon, I was heading to the entrance of my apartment complex to pick up my mail. As I left my apartment, I made sure the door was locked because it had this automatic locking feature. I was also chatting with my boyfriend on the phone, just enjoying our conversation. After grabbing my mail, I returned to my apartment, sat down on the bed, and continued talking to my boyfriend while opening my letters. At some point, I accidentally dropped my phone, and it slid under the bed. Annoyed, but not thinking much of it, I lay down on the floor to reach for it. As I stretched my arm under the bed, something caught my eye. My heart nearly stopped. There, lying under my bed, was a person. I froze, my eyes widening in disbelief. The person had their back turned towards me, with their head tucked into their chest, so I couldn't see their face. Thankfully, they hadn't noticed me yet. 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind, but I knew I had to stay calm. I slowly grabbed my phone and, trying to sound as normal as possible, said, "Sorry, I dropped my phone. I'm just going to take a shower and call you back." My bathroom was right next to my bed, so I got up as calmly as I could and walked into the bathroom. I quietly locked the door behind me and turned on the shower to keep up the act. Then, with my heart pounding, I opened the bathroom window, which luckily faced the street and was on the first floor. I carefully climbed out, and once I was outside, I immediately called the police. The police instructed me to stay nearby, but to keep an eye on the entrance to the apartment complex and my bathroom window. It was summer, so it was still light outside, making it easier for me to watch. I found a spot across the street where I could see everything without being seen myself. I hid behind a car, my eyes glued to my apartment, praying nothing horrible would happen. I called my boyfriend again, explaining everything in a hushed, frantic voice. He rushed over and arrived just before the police. I handed my keys to the officers, and they went inside to investigate. I waited outside with one officer who stayed by my side, trying to comfort me. After what felt like an eternity, but was probably only a few minutes, 2 officers came out of my apartment, holding a thin, exhausted-looking man. His eyes were wild, and he looked completely disoriented, but he didn't resist or try to escape. The officer who had been with me explained that the man had been standing right outside my bathroom door, holding one of my kitchen knives, waiting for me to come out. I felt a wave of relief and terror wash over me at the same time. It was horrifying to think how close I had been to real danger. The man turned out to be homeless and mentally ill. He had somehow slipped into my apartment when I went to get my mail and decided to hide under my bed. The police took him to a mental hospital for evaluation and care. The whole ordeal left me shaken to the core. My boyfriend moved in with me the very next day to help me feel safer. It was comforting to have him close by, and I was grateful for his support. Looking back, I'm thankful I managed to stay calm and think rationally during such a frightening ordeal. The police told me that my actions were incredibly smart and likely saved me from a much worse outcome. If I had screamed or panicked, things could have ended very differently. I wanted to share my story not just to get it off my chest, but also to help others. If you ever find yourself in a scary situation like this, try to stay calm and think clearly. I hope it never happens to any of you, but if it does, now you know what to do.
When I was a kid, I had a habit of sneaking downstairs for a late-night snack. It was always the same routine, the house silent, everyone else asleep, and me navigating through the darkness, hungry for whatever leftovers I could find in the fridge. But one night, in May of an '81, that routine took a terrifying turn. I remember it so vividly, even still today. The faint glow of the microwave clock casting eerie shadows across the kitchen. And there he was, a dark stranger, sitting at our kitchen counter, helping himself to our food like he belonged there. My heart stopped, fear gripping me as I realized I wasn't alone. I bolted back to my room, waking my parents in a panic. But by the time they got downstairs, the intruder was gone. They brushed it off, chalking it up to my overactive imagination, fueled by all those horror comics I loved. But I knew what I saw was real. And so, I began to pay closer attention, determined to prove I wasn't just seeing things. I started keeping track of the little details. One morning, I found the paper napkin holder on the opposite side of the counter from where it should be. Another time, a mug appeared in the sink that hadn't been there the night before. With no lock on my bedroom door, I began sleeping with a steak knife under my pillow for safety. This confirmed my suspicions that someone else was lurking in our home. It was unsettling, knowing that there was someone out there, watching and waiting. It was a hot August night back in 1981, and I was just chilling in my bedroom, lost in a book. But then, something caught my eye. A movement behind the air conditioning vent right above my bed. My heart skipped a beat as I stared back, realizing there were eyes peering at me through the metal grates. I freaked out, let me tell you. I wasted no time in hightailing it to my parents, insisting they search every inch of our house, the attic, the crawl space, you name it. But despite my pleas, they found nothing out of the ordinary. By the end of the month, things in my house started to get weird. The place began to smell really bad, like something rotten. One night, I was lying in bed when, out of nowhere, rice started falling out of the vent over my head. Except it wasn't rice. They were maggots. I was completely freaked out, and my parents called the AC guys to check it out. They said that something had probably crawled into the vents and died. It turned out the something was actually the man I had seen earlier. He had died up there. Our house was old and had lots of space between the walls and big ducts. He had been living in them since at least May. But the most terrifying part was what I found out next. The man had placed a foam pad beside the vent in my bedroom to make himself comfortable while watching me. The police told me he had made lots of drawings too, but when I asked for more details, they pretended they hadn't mentioned it. The whole thing made my blood run cold. To think that someone had been watching me, lurking in the shadows of my own home, was enough to make me feel sick. He had been there all along, hiding in the shadows, watching me as I slept. Who was he? How long had he been there? And why had he chosen our house? Even now, I'm left with more questions than answers. Despite a thorough police investigation yielding no leads, the identity of the man still remains a mystery. The fear and paranoia from that time still linger, and I can tell you, it took me at least a year to feel safe enough to sleep soundly again after that experience.
Let's go back to November 12th, 2018. That day started like any other. I was in my bedroom, my safe space, the place where I should feel the most secure. But then, out of nowhere, a man attacked me in my own room. I was in complete shock and fear, but I fought him off with everything I had. Somehow, I managed to make him run away. Later, the police caught him, and what they found with him was even more horrifying. A knife, latex gloves, and a gun he had bought, which they found outside my home. It was like something out of a nightmare. The police started digging deeper into the case, and what they found made everything even scarier. They discovered that this man had actually broken into my home at least twice before the attack in November. He didn't just break in, he hid in my closet. Think about that for a second. Someone hiding in your closet, watching you as you undress, brush your teeth, get ready for bed, and even while you sleep. It's beyond creepy and something I wouldn't wish on anyone. One of the really unsettling parts of this story is that the investigators couldn't figure out how he was getting into my apartment. There were no signs of forced entry, like broken windows or locks. The police thought that he was somehow watching me enter my garage code and used that to get in. This makes the story even more unsettling because it shows how sneaky and determined he was. But how did this stalker even find me? Well, it turns out we had both taken a class together at the local community college during the fall of 2017. I guess he must have noticed me in class and started following me after that. In fact, he had been stalking me for over a year before he finally attacked me. The case went to court, and he pleaded guilty to first-degree burglary, stalking, and crime of violence using a weapon. The judge sentenced him to almost 20 years in prison. When I heard the sentence, I felt a huge sense of relief, knowing that he would be behind bars for a long time. This means I could finally start to feel safe again and try to move on with my life. This whole story is a huge reminder to all of us. We need to be more aware of our surroundings.